Hello, hello. Hope you guys are doing good. I was running around the house looking for my Hydro Flask. I might have left it in the car. I hope you guys are doing well. We are starting. Let me make sure I don't have any alarms on. We'll be on for just a minute. If you guys have anything specific you want to talk about in class, you can definitely drop it in chat. And then I was talking to a couple different agents regarding some of the stuff we talked about in class and one of my classes. And we were talking about, let me move this out of the way. There were two questions that were asked this week in one of my live lectures. And one was, is there a maximum that you can charge to sell someone's house? Is there like a cap? And then when it comes to the earnest money deposit or holding on to someone's check, what if it's an uncashed check? And there was something in one of the books about that. And I was talking to a couple different people I've worked with, and I was like, we kept blank checks in the files back in the day. And that 3-day rule of like the moment there's a date on any of the checks, that 3 days starts. And so I was talking to a couple people that I've worked with, and I was like, if there's a 3-day rule. They're like, yeah, that's why we had the blank checks. But the book states it as uncashed. And I'm like, we can't, if it's uncashed, it's just kind of screwy. So I Google it. And of course, everything Google has to say is in support of what the book says. And what the book basically says is you can't hold someone's check for more than 3 days. Well, that's a viable check, right? In the same way, if you write the rent on the 1st of November and the date says the 1st of November, if your landlord waits 3 months to cash it and your check is only good for 3 months, if they don't, well, obviously if they don't cash it in November, you're going to let them know, or like, hey man, but they have an expiration date on them. And so we were having like this, you could say, coffee talk about it. And so this is what we're going to discuss like for the first 10 minutes tomorrow in that particular class that the students were asking about. And then the other, so basically if the check does not have a signature and the check does not have a date on it, it's just a blank check, then it can stay in your office forever and ever, amen, right? Well, who in their right mind, I mean, we're in 2023. Is there anybody in here that even has, do you guys even have checks? I have checks. I have them for my the property taxes. You can say they're real fancy. I have them. It's a piece of paper. We already took care of November's payment, the first set of property taxes. This is for the second prep set of property taxes, and then this will be for December's check. And then I need to because we do it by check. We don't have automatic auto pay. So that's the one thing I don't have set up as auto because they don't have that. Yeah, exactly, Adam. That's what these are. I got these from the bank because I don't need them. Yeah, not normally. If I need one, I go to the bank. Yeah, exactly. And then also back, depending upon if you ever work anywhere, you used to have to go in and ask for a page of checks so that you could use one of them and then write void on it for employment so that you had direct deposit. But now if you go on to, I don't know about your bank, but my bank, and I know my credit union as well. Actually my credit union is a little old school, but I can just like walk in and get something from them. They're fabulous. And that it's worth driving up there to do it because like their customer service is ridiculously amazing. But at US Bank, I can log into US Bank and I can get a PDF form that's for deposits for employment, so that it's that fake voided check page, and it's for direct deposit, and it has like the direct deposit information already filled out, and I can just like hand that in with the I-9 information. And so I was just trying to think of like the things that we read in the book. Sometimes you're going to find, and it's not just sometimes, what you're going to find in real estate is that especially in your prerequisite classes, there's a lot of fundamentals in there. There's a lot of stuff where you're like, dude, we don't do this anymore. But to know that that's what the history is, we've got to work with that. And then we can creatively go, okay, yeah, that worked back in, like 2003, 2004, but in 2023, what are you going to do with your clients? And counterbalance, have the understanding, because the book is talking to you about that historical step, that direction, or this direction. But we won't negate what's in the book, because grasping the concepts in the book is going to be the powerhouse that gets you to that next level. And so I don't want to say that the book is giving you guys stuff that's not accurate, but the information might be historically expired. It might be it might be of the dinosaur era when it comes like fax machines and stuff. So anyway, there's a couple YouTubers I watch. They joke about fax machines, and so the moment I said fax machines, I started laughing. But if you've ever seen the movie Office Space, um, and just like the fax machine, or was it a printer? Was it a printer? It was a printer, but it looked like one of those all-in-one fax machine printers. But printers are known for having attitudes, even though people are like, computers don't have any type of personality, but we probably push it on them or whatever. But anyway, that being said, I hope you guys are doing well. It is 6:36. I want to talk to you guys about vocabulary. I've only done about 76 of the letter A, but if there is something that you guys want to discuss with regards to your study for this week, or something that you've read, you're like, this is as clear as mud, we can deep dive that. But if you don't have that, we'll talk about vocabulary, and I will take time as I can to continue to build imagery. But if you even like go through the vocabulary with your, you're like, I've seen a better image than that specifically for that vocabulary words, drop it in chat. We'll drop it in, and we'll continue to create a better set of vocabulary terms, because that seems to be more than anything, that seems to be where people are like, you really expect us to learn all of these words? I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't. I hope that you will, but I'm not going to say, please read every word in the book. I'm going to say, look at the areas that are bolded, read through those, read the questions at the back, see if you can find the answers, read the image, see the information in the notes and the images, and you'll get the lion's share of the information you need. The vocabulary that I'm asking you guys to research and study is associated with the vocabulary with the Department of Real Estate. That's the vocabulary, that's the entity that's creating the state exam, and they're going to build it off of their vocabulary and their vocabulary terms. So that being said, that's the vocabulary I want you guys to study. I'm not going to add to what you have to learn. I'm trying to kind of give you the tips of the icebergs, plural. So I hope that helps, or I hope that makes sense. Let me go into the vocabulary so that we can talk about it, and I can put that in the chat so you guys can see where I am. What was up with this weather today? We walked the dog this morning, and it was at about 7:20, and it was sunny. I was like, well, it's supposed to thunder and lightning. Very, very frightening, right? And then was that like 10? And it was like noon. I walked outside and it's raining, and I was like, what is this? Anyway, not a bad thing. Just like, what is this? All right, let me share the screen and share the slides so you guys can see them. I made broccoli cheddar soup, and it was very, I guess you could say carb heavy, and I didn't really have the carbs that went with it. So I'm a little snoozy because it just hit me. We ate at 6. And that being said, let me put this in chat. So I'm going to have us look at the vocabulary terms that I have available for us to work off of. I'm still only working on A, and I have it highlighted in such a way. I might turn the camera off. Hold on just a second. If the interwebs, they've been a little weird. I don't know how you guys, your Wi-Fi capabilities have been, but ours have been a bit off, which was weird. For units 2 and 3, are we going to be touching on those again in the future units, or what we want over, what we went over in units is it? Just curious. We went over the massive the lion's share of each of those units, but if there's something in one of those units, you're like, wait, we didn't touch on this. We can definitely touch on that. Is there something that you're concerned about for Unit 2 or Unit 3 that you want to talk about? Because we can do that. The thing you're going to find about the book is chapters 1 through probably 5 are nothing particular. It's just a ton. Oh my gosh, Adam, it's totally a ton. And the thing about it being a ton is you're like, oh, they can't add to this, and then they do, and you're like, wait a second. But it's precept upon precept. So you're learning this fundamental information. You know, that's like, when I say that, please understand, I mean, it's as if we lifted the lid of a car and took the whole entire thing apart and didn't note which ones touch each other. And I'm like, and I'm telling you, hey, don't worry about it. It'll start making sense, and you'll realize that the thigh bone's connected to the hip bone and that kind of stuff. I obviously am mixing dinosaurs and car engines. So that lets you know you're definitely the blind's leading the blind with regards to those things. But everything that you're going through will start connecting. But you're really technically only 3 days in on a 7-day journey through that book. But the moment you find anything that you're like, wait a second, did we touch on this? Did we not touch on this? Because I remember one student, after all 3 classes were done, she called me and she's like, we never even went over this stuff. Why am I studying it? And I was like, yeah, you did. It was in chapter 12. And I like told her which book, and she was like, it's not in there. I'm like, I owe you a cup of coffee if I'm wrong. Pretty sure it's in there. Sure enough, she goes back and she's like, how did I miss that? And I'm like, well, you didn't technically miss it. You were absorbing all of this other information. And I received an email from a student saying, is there any possibility I can take the final? It's a different school, different institution, right? Is there any way you could extend time for me to take the final? And so we had to go through the powers that be for that extension to go through. And it's definitely a daunting task to expect to have such high expectations for yourself, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we're talking about going through between 200 to 300 pages of information in a new language in 3.5 weeks, with me talking to you for anywhere from probably the shortest week is the last week, so I'm only talking to you for 6.5 hours, and then the other classes we have together, I'm actually talking to you for 12 hours a week, right? And so it's as we get a little bit further in the book and things start to kind of focus like a good pair of glasses, you're like, wait a second, that sounds familiar, that makes sense. Then it'll start helping, not just with the retention of the previous stuff, but we're kind of at that meeting ground, or the cusp of something where you're like, okay, either I'm going to get it or I'm going to walk away. And I'm just asking you, just give me a little bit more time. You know what I mean? Yeah, you can go ahead, Daniel.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry, this is my husband's account, so my name is
That's okay.
Marilu. I just have the wrong Zoom.
That's okay.
Anyways, so as I'm going through the book and the vocabulary, as I'm studying for it and taking some of the quizzes or tests that they have in the program, I find that some of the questions are very difficult to understand per se, not very clear. Is that how it's gonna be in the real exam when we take the California real estate exam?
I'm going to say yes, but there's a caveat to that. Once you've gone through once you get to the 3rd book, or once you take the 3rd prerequisite, you start to get familiar with how they lay the sentences down, or how they write the sentences. And then you're like, oh, I know what they're asking here. So one of the things I would encourage you to do, and to build this in right now, before you take the state exam, is I want to encourage you to read the 4 options of the answers, and then go read the question and go, okay, out of these 4 options, which one would be the best choice for that, and break it up from you answering the question to looking at the four answers or the four concepts and go, okay, based on what this question is asking me, the only one, or these are the two that could closely be related to that, and see if that doesn't help. It's a little bit like Jeopardy. Does that make sense? The game show Jeopardy?
Yes, and that was my next question. Is it only multiple choice or is it fill in the blank
No,
or
oh
what type of
girl,
question?
Mary Lou, God help us all if that thing was fill in the blank. It's definitely multiple choice, but could you imagine? You're like, you want me to write an essay? No, 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 no,
I'm
no.
seriously, uh, I'm studying every day, all day, and it's crazy, ridiculously crazy, trying to understand some of this vocabulary. Yeah,
Oh,
that was my question.
absolutely. Oh,
Thank you.
absolutely. And the thing, and oh, absolutely. But please do me a favor. For every hour you've set aside for instruction or for studying, either break it up into 30-minute or 20-minute segment. So study for 20, take a 5 or 10 minute break, study for 20, take a 5 or 10 minute break, because it's a little bit like all the gurus are talking about, you've got to eat 6 meals, so you eat every 2 hours, and so then you might be a little hungry, but your body's like, oh, I'm good, I can wait another like 30 minutes or something for that next little bit. And the same thing goes with our brain. Our brain goes, oh, okay, so I'm going to get a break from this, I'm going to be able to breathe and absorb and like let this marinate and then move forward. But the concept, the literal like the process of learning this, it is truly its own language. It's contractual law language. It's the language that attorneys need to know in order to pass the baby bar here in the state of California. You could even consider the brokers to be a little bit like passing the bar. Thank you. I'm just trying to find the best study methods for myself, and units 2 and 3 are kicking my butt, but I'm sure it will kick in with some more with some more time. Adam, truly it will. And that's one thing I don't like about this particular book is I'm not trying, I kind of do feel like a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. I do prefer that the first couple chapters like this are harder, but it does build once you're like, oh, okay, if this is the hardest part. And I would venture to say that chapters 2 and 3 seem to me, and it's not fair to you for me to say that because I've been around this for, I've only been licensed for 22 years. I've been in the industry or around the industry because of my brothers since I was like 15 or 16. So that doesn't mean I understand. That means I was taught in some respects the way to do business that might not necessarily be the way to do business anymore when it comes to lending institutions and stuff. So, take the breaks, you guys. That's what that Brown University study is that I share about sometimes in class. I'll talk to you guys about it, where Brown University studied college students that were taking crash courses or concentrated courses. And the students that would study for 8 hours straight and not take any breaks, they actually found that they only had about 30 minutes of that 6 to 8 hours worth of study time. There was only about 30 minutes right at the beginning that they actually absorbed any of the information, because the rest of the time they were fighting fatigue. They were fighting themselves because they felt disappointed because they weren't grasping the concepts and other things. And they found that the students that studied for 20 to 40 minutes and then would literally turn off the light. I can't turn off the light where I am right now, but would turn off the light where they were studying, put on a timer, step away for 10 minutes and go do something else, go read something on social media, or, watch the news for about 10 minutes or so. And then because we're in 2023, you can pause whatever that is, right? And then you can come back, and then you go back to what you're doing. And this counterbalance back and forth between those things, for whatever reason, allows the brain to relax enough that it's retaining more information. Pomodoro set timer for 25 minutes. I'm when I tell you guys, and if you're ever in a lecture with me, even no matter what classes I'm teaching in, I try not to exceed the hour mark. Even when we're doing this, I'll say, okay, you guys, we're getting close to 7:30. We've been together for an hour. And part of the reason for that is I'm not here to waste your evenings. This Wednesday night is ask any questions, complain, get angry, get frustrated. You don't like the book, you don't like me. Please don't come on here if you don't like me. Like me. No, what I mean is if there's something that's missing, if there's something I haven't done, or there's something I could do better, that's really what these are about. You can ask anything, or you can say why, you can say, why does my book say stuff that's like tricking me? Why is it trying to trick me? And you'll find sometimes with the questions in the book, even though they're frustrating and you're like, that's very tricky. They shouldn't have done that. It's prepping you for the state exam, because one thing about the state exam is they're saying, hey, they're giving you a license, and I'm always going to pick up an envelope that's here because I was just looking at the mail. They're giving you a license to help someone go into 30 years of debt. They're giving you a license for someone, that's if they don't have, a couple $1,000,000 out of their pocket. They're giving you a license to encourage someone to liquidate $1,000,000 or more of debt, or liquidate their retirement, or borrow against their retirement or their Roth IRA. You're encouraging, you should buy this house. This is a good idea. They're giving you a license to do that. And because you're the specialist, they're like, okay, you know what we're going to do on that state exam? We're going to make the state exam a little tricky. We're going to see if they know how to dot all their I's and cross all their T's. And so when I encourage you by saying, we've got to learn the vocabulary, you need to understand the concepts of what they're asking, because you're going to find some of these vocabulary terms. You're like, that's lending. That's commercial real estate. I'm not going into commercial real estate, Kathy. I'm just helping my parents and my family get homes. Or you might be saying, this is all residential. I'm doing commercial. This is a waste of my time. You know what I mean? And I'm not here to, I don't even know I'm sharing my screen. Sorry. Um, there's this side of you that are like, why do I need to know what all of these other departments are doing? Because all of these departments work hand in hand, right? All of the departments are working to help that client get the house. You've got the escrow that's doing the paperwork. You've got you, the agent, helping your client. And if your client is looking to buy the house, now we've got the seller and their agent on the other side of the table. You've got the appraiser, you've got the lender. You've got the county assessor's office explaining how taxes are done. You know what I mean? I just found this online. I'm sharing it with you in case anyone wants to use it. Pomodoro technique. Choose a task, select a task you want to work on, set a timer, traditionally 25 minutes, work on the task, focus on the task until the timer rings, take a short break, okay, good, for about 5 minutes, repeat, and then repeat the process after completing. 4, take a longer break for 15 to 30 minutes. I love that idea. And we have instructors, depending upon who your instructors are at whichever one of the colleges and which of the classes. If you're independent studies, your independent studies are going to stay independent, right? You're just going to be reaching out to the client. I love that. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Mary Lou. If you're in any of the live sessions with myself, other people, depending upon the institution that you're getting your prerequisite courses from, we all do things differently. I remember I had to have a sub for was it a something last year? Funeral, I think, family funeral. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember that there was a sub, and the student, when I came back, they're like, she didn't give us a break for anything. And I was like, excuse me? And I was like, I thought you had to, I said, when I trained for that company specifically back in 2020, 2021, right at the beginning of 2021, I was like, we're supposed to give a break at the top of every hour or whatever. But that specific instructor, uh, I don't know if she talks at a different pace than me or works at a different pace than me, but she didn't feel like she could get as much information in if she gave them more breaks. And so she just shared with them, oh, well, we do lunch and you might get 5 minutes. And I was like, so they're like, we don't want you to ever leave again. Cause they got used to with me that 10 minutes every hour. But I love that, taking a break. So every 25 minutes, take a break, take a 5-minute break. That's perfect. So is this working? Are you putting this into play, Mary? Well, actually, if you are, share how it's helping you. But if you haven't yet, then I want you to share with us next week. I want you to put that into to play if possible. And I'm going to write that down. Adora. Okay. Now, slow and steady always wins the race. And that even goes for microwaved foods, right? Or air fried foods. I started these vocabulary terms 2 weeks ago. We were going to go in the next set of vocabulary terms. And we were going to start here. So it's only slide 45 to slide 77. So it's not that many, but I decided that it might benefit the class if we could have imagery or additional resources with regards to the term and definition for the Department of Real Estate website, right? So allodial tenure, which is something, or allodial title, you're like, I've never heard of this before. I know, either have I. So this is a term that's in the California Department of Real Estate's glossary of terms. This is a real property ownership system where ownership may be complete, exempt from those rights held by the government. Allodial is in contrast to feudal tenure. So allodial. So basically what this means is it's alienated or it's pulled away. So it's kind of like this hierarchy. So the potential of there not being taxes, the potential of there not being that eminent domain, meaning the government can't come in and shut you down. I don't know anyone that has allodial tenure. The only thing, can you guys think of anything that could be close to allodial tenure? It would be above the law. It's a piece of property that's above the law that this piece of property could be in a country, but it is not, or it could be on a, I should say, continent, but it's not required to follow the laws of that continent or the laws of that country. Because you could say, in some respects, allodial tenure would almost be its own country or its own entity within a country. Can you guys think of anything? Think about all the people in power in the world. An ambassador's office. That's a good idea, Adam. I like that idea where you've got an ambassador from another country that's in a building that people can go in and seek respite there from the country that they're in. That's not a bad idea. I immediately thought of, this might sound, because you're like, no, but I immediately thought of the archdiocese. And you're like, but it got its own currency and it is its own country, but it yes, but it's also in Italy, right? And so it's in Italy, but it's the archdiocese, but it's not. So I was like trying to think of how can I express to you guys what this term means, but you can see where even Adam's going with this, right? Adam's said like an ambassador's office. So if we had in San Francisco, we have one over here on the other side of Highland Park, between Highland Park and where Dodger Stadium is. There's an embassy for one of a country. I can't think of the name of the country right now, but people are there taking care of business or whatever. But I like where you're going with that. It's run by the government, but you can see what I mean by there are some of these terms where you're like, how am I going to? Am I ever going to have a client that asks about this? Am I ever going to, like, we just need to be familiar with all the aspects of ownership of land, federal, state, and the historical aspects of some of these things that we're never going to experience. And in my probably closer to 28 years in the industry, I've never I've never even looked this term up, and I've had this as an assignment for multiple classes where I'm like, do this page, share with me, and I've read through it. I'm like, wow, that's a really good, because most of the time what I ask for students to do is, here's 22 vocabulary terms. How would you water this down for your client? How would you express this if somebody was sitting in front of you? And that's how I want us to learn the terms. I'm wondering if that would be a good way of looking at it as well, Adam. Actually, that would be far more accurate to the state of California, that it would be tribal land, right? So it can't be eminent domains. it can't be, even though you could say the government, the American Indian populace has been removed from their land and they've been given land. The land was given to them. The land that was given to them cannot be taken from them now. So I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot because see, that actually can work in our country. And I'm thinking the archdiocese. I'm thinking like where the Pope lives, the buildings. Yes, I love it. I love it. Yes, absolutely. Good job. All right. Next word, alluvium. Let me move this. I don't need to see my face. The gradual increase of earth on a shore of an ocean or bank of a stream resulting from the action of the water. I think this is a great example. We have different images if you're ever any of my live lectures, but I love the concept of seeing the soil moving. And the soil's moving, right? It's the gradual increase. You can see how that started as a lower area and as it built. Alluvium. Do you need to know what alluvium is? Yes. Do you need to know it for the state exam? They might actually ask you about alluvium because of the flooding and some other stuff that's happened recently. But moreover, the questions that are going to be asked of you on the state exam are going to be associated with consumer concerns. What I mean by that is it going to, are you there to protect the consumer? And then how do you do that as an agent? But it is a term that you are going to need to be familiar with. Now, Alta owner's policy, this is one of the title insurance policies that there's two, right? You've got the C Alta and you've got the Alta. An owner's extended coverage policy that provides buyers and owners the same protection the Alta policy gives to lenders. And so basically what they're talking about is this is title insurance. So this policy, and this is basically what a policy would look like, at least the top of it, right? The First American Title Insurance Company is the example you have here. They actually have the policy number, and you would see that as well. And then the owner's policy, it looks like this was given out October 17th of 1992. So this is basically the insurance from when the seller goes to sell the house to the buyer and during that transition period of time. So let's say that Mary Lou is buying Adam's house. And in the process of buying Adam's, and Adam's like, not a problem. She's giving me exactly what I want for the price. And in the midst of the transfer from Adam to Mary Lou, somebody tries to swindle in that there's some debt that Adam owes that he doesn't owe, right? So this title insurance policy, it's title insurance, it's protecting the title of said property. It will transfer smoothly from Adam to Mary Lou. And when one of these things tries to fly in and go, oh, well, Adam owes me money because like I did work on his property like 20 years ago. They're like, no, you don't have any proof. We have this insurance policy is set up in such a way that you can't ding Mary Lou for it. And title will probably call Adam and be like, dude, this guy thinks you owe him money. And you're like, oh no, I have the lawsuit paperwork from 20 years ago. Like, why would that come up? Like Adam's not going to go over to Mary Lou, go, hey, I'm going to sell you my house, but I had a problem 20 years ago with a builder that tried to make it sound like I didn't pay him, but we have proof of the bank. You know what I mean? Those kind of things can come up, or those kind of things can arise where the transfer of title, and Mary Lou is buying the property free and clear, meaning there's no debts that have been encumbered on that property under Adam's name that are going to go over to hers. And Adam's like, I don't know anything. I don't know anybody anything. I paid that baby off like 3 years ago. I'm taking my money. I'm going to Cancun, or whatever the situation. So this title insurance is to protect from the seller selling the home to the buyer receiving the home with clear marketable title, meaning that Mary Lou can turn around and sell the home next month and there'll be no residual problems with the sale. There's not going to be anything that like any title concerns. We know that Adam owned the property. Title insurance helps make sure the chain of title is clear. There's no cloud on title and the like. So the Alta owner's policy is basically that extended coverage policy, so nothing can kind of come in under the carpet, if you will, to try to slide in between the seller and selling it directly to the buyer. The American Title Association is a type of title insurance, so it looks like I might not have put that word. I think this needs to say American Title and American Land Title Association, and I can fix that later. But they basically are the type of insurance policy. There's policies out there. Is there anybody in the class right now that works in real estate? Or are you guys, is anyone in here being mentored by an agent, or is everybody still looking for a broker? And while you guys talk about that, I will open and fix this. Should say it. Still looking, hopefully soon. That's okay. No worries if you don't have a broker yet, but have you guys let your family and friends know that you're getting into the industry, you're interested in getting into the industry, to see how they're like, oh, you need to go talk to Bob over at, the Newhart mortgage company or anything like that? Or has everybody just been watching? Has anyone asked you if you're enjoying it? I've had a number of people go, oh, you're teaching those classes. You think I should do this? Like, yeah, of course you should do it. You should totally do it. I'm looking for, I had it open. There you are. Yeah, maroon. Let me edit this one really quickly, or really slowly, actually. We're on slide 48. Alter title policy, alter owner policy. No, it needs to be alter title policy. Alternative dispute resolution is the next one. Okay. Let's see if it'll work this time. We'll try one more time. There we go. So you have two different title policies. You have two different opportunities for your clients. Now you're going to be asking your broker what you should use, or who you should use, or who they use, and always trust who your broker uses, because your broker is not going to use anyone that's going to bring your client anything bad. And if it is a broker that kind of lives on the edge, you might want somebody that doesn't live so close to the edge. Let's see. Let's try this again. All right, so we've got the Alta owner's policy, Alta title policy. They basically are hand in hand. They're just signed differently. Then the next thing you have is the alternative dispute resolution. Have you guys heard of alternative dispute resolution? The chat says, I have a couple friends in real estate and they told me for the first month, just focus on school and vocab, and then to come start a mentorship program so I can have a minimal understanding coming in, so that it's not so overwhelming. That's actually excellent advice. And one thing you're going to find, Adam, is the class, because you're taking principles right now, and then we're going to go into the practice class. And in the practice book, when I'm reading through the new book, I started reading through the new book tonight. You're going to find that there's a lot of questions like this. Have you thought about this kind of a broker? Are you doing this full time? Are you doing this part time? Are you going to work with a mortgage company that is going to help you with marketing? Do you need help with marketing? Do you want a transaction coordinator, somebody that's going to be coordinating your transactions, someone that's going to be coordinating your marketing and the like? Okay. When we talk about ADR, or alternative dispute resolution, we're talking about the resolution of disputes through the means of either mediation or arbitration. Mediation is a situation where you've got, let's say as an example, you guys are buying a house. And when I say let's say that that Lee is trying to buy my house, and I said I'd sell it, and then I was like, I changed my mind, and she's like, I'll see you in court. And so I'm like, whatever. And I don't want to go to court. I've signed that we go to mediation, and basically mediation is this office. you could say it's in the courthouse per se, but a lot of times it's like a conference room, and we go in and she's got the receipt. She got the CVS receipt showing that I was supposed to sell the house to her, and I'm just sitting on it because I'm being lazy. And basically what happens in that kind of situation is the mediator goes, okay, Kathy, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't know. I just don't feel like selling it now. And they're like, but legally, you have a legally binding bilateral contract. You promised to sell, they promised to buy. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I really want to do it now. And they're like, but you understand that mediation is here to help try to like balance us out. But in the midst of balancing out the inequities, if you will, you contractually are obligated to sell. And if this goes to mediation is like just being able to talk shop. Okay. Arbitration is with a retired judge. And with arbitration, if this goes to arbitration, not only are you going to owe and have to sell the house, but you're going to have to pay the attorney fees. And because she had to take you to court, because you just decided that you just don't know if you want to do this or not. And the mediator's like, you better get your big girl britches on, Kath, because you're going to be taken down. And so then if I'm sitting there in mediation, I'm like, whatever. And so then what's the next, and then we're sitting there and I'm still not responding like in an accurate way. And then they're like, okay, well, mediation's first, then it's arbitration. At that point, because the steps have been taken, these are those alternative dispute resolutions. There's a resolution that's trying to be made. And you'll see this in the listing agreement and the purchase agreement for the California Association of Realtors forms, that it says that your clients have to go through these steps in order for their attorney fees to get paid by the losing group. And I'm going to lose this because I did sign the documents and I did say I'd sell the house. And so I'm like, well, whatever, we'll go to arbitration. The thing about arbitration is arbitration's usually with a retired judge, and it's not in front of a jury. It's just in front of a person who used to be a judge, and they're going to look at the paperwork and they're going to see that Lee has all the paperwork and it says I was supposed to sell, and like we're only going to be there for like a minute, and he's going to go, Kathy, we are forcing you to sell the property. The sheriff will be there to help it doesn't have to go this far, but it could go this far. If you aren't out by X, Y, and Z, we will have the sheriff there to escort you off the premises. And her attorney fees are, I don't know, $210,000, and you're going to be writing a check for that as well. Or you're going to have your income, it's going to be attached to your income or attached to something or other. They don't mess around. An arbiter is usually a retired judge, and they don't mess around. They have no time. There's no time for that. So a lot of times people think, oh, well, it's arbitration, it's not really court. No, it's court, but it's not court like you're going into a courthouse with a bunch of other people. Your arbitration's also in like a conference room, but it's in front of a judge, a retired judge, and they're moving through these shorter cases, or these cases where no jury is needed, and they're following the law. Now, what's the law they're following? Statute of frauds. And in the state of California, we know that when it comes to the statute of frauds, that it has to be in writing, right? And who had their paperwork? Lee had the paperwork. Lee had proof that I had signed on the dotted line. And I was like, oh man, I hate people that are organized or whatever. It doesn't matter. I could be angry. The reality of the situation is I put myself in that position. I went through the process of listing the home. I went through the process of getting a real estate agent to list my home, to do open houses. They showed me all the offers. We accepted that one. It's not like I didn't know what I was getting into, but a lot of times people go into these arbitration or even mediation cases and go, I just don't know what they're expecting of me. And it's like, no. There's a lot of paperwork. That's why it has to be in writing in the state of California. It can, not only will it hold up in a court of law, but it'll put a requirement on me to follow through with what I've said I was going to do. All right. We can do a couple more. Okay. What about amenities? When I think of amenities, when we're traveling, I'm like, what are the amenities in the hotel? When we go to Wyoming to visit Adam's family, I always, Adam, my husband, not Adam in the Zoom. Sorry for those of you like, wait, what? Different Adam. Same spelling. So it's a good spelling. It's a good person, right? I'm always looking for pet friendly, but not like a zoo friendly. Like there's like a level to my, but pet friendly, and then close parking, because in Wyoming there's snow, and we've been there for a couple storms, and we've been there when we were the only people in the hotel. And then there was a storm, and they stopped. I think, is it Highway 80 over there by your parents? And then the place was packed because the highway was closed. And it was so weird to go from, you know, uh, this huge facility having us and like the owners, and then having a bunch of people, and you could hear people's dogs, and there was a bunch of semi trucks parked on the road. But anyway, amenities, satisfaction of enjoyable living to be derived from a home. So I think of amenity when I think of amenities, I think of a lease or a rental agreement, like a hotel or an Airbnb, right? But when people look at homes, they really do look at the amenities. Oh, is that a gas stove? Is that a gas range in the kitchen? I can't wait to do Thanksgiving turkey. That kitchen's the kitchen. I've never had a gas stove, or oh, I've had gas before. We don't want gas. We probably need to put electric in there. Well, you just have to take out the gas range because there's usually electric and connected to the gas stove to get it to light, right? For the protection of it all. But there's little things like that. People look at the amenities on the home. I've sold houses to people that loved a particular color of blue. And they're like, I just love this blue wall. And in my mind, I'm like, I can give you that. That's Sherman-Williams 4726. All right, it's not really that, but you know what I mean? It's like, I can commission a painter to come in, and it's going to cost us a whopping $300. And I will gift that to you if you'll buy the house closer to your kid's school. But people look at the amenities and they get sold on the property because of the amenities. So that's where I was going with that. How are we doing on time? It's 7:16. So we are doing pretty good. Let's do the next word. What about amortization? The liquidation of the financial obligation on an installment basis, also recovery over the period of the cost. So the reason I have this image here is an amortization schedule for your client. So let's say your client's getting a loan on a property, and it's a 30-year fixed, and this actually gives everything. It says the mortgage amount is $400,000. The borrowing term is 30 years. The annual interest rate is 5%. The monthly interest rate, so there's an additional 0.42% that's going to be the increase because the balance that lingers for the year. And then the payment frequency is going to be 12, so once a month, right? And then the total number of payments, that would be 30 times 12, would be 360. And what happens here is it gives you the true breakdown, what the payment is, what the interest is, what the principal. So this is the total payment. This is the amount that goes to interest. This is the amount that goes to principal. This is the amount of the balance. This is the interest rate, and this is the principal. And it breaks it all down. And you're like, well, what is an amortization, or why would I need to know about an amortization schedule? When your client purchases a home, if they get a loan, when they go in to sign loan docs, and I want to encourage you guys as real estate agents to go in and be there with them when they're signing any paperwork in escrow. And one of the sets of paper, if they do get a loan, is the mortgage loan. And in that paperwork, they're going to give them a stack of pages, and it's like 10, and it's double-sided, and it's going to give them their amortization schedule, and it's going to show what the first payment is, and it's going to give the interest rate, and a lot like this. It's going to be set up a lot like this. And then at the very last page, it's going to show what the last payment on the 12th month of the 30th year is going to be. And then it's going to show that they have a zero balance. And that's if it's a 30-year fix. If it's not a 30-year fix, that's another can that we can have at another day. But the reason that I'm sharing that with you is if you're sitting with your clients and they pull out this stack of papers, they're like, here's your amortization schedule. And you're like, holy crap, what the hell is that? Like, and I'm saying that if you've never experienced purchasing a home, now you know what an amortization schedule looks like. And when you get it, you're like, oh, that just gives you, that shares the details of every time you make a payment, how much goes to principal, how much goes to interest. And in 30 years, how much you're going to owe at the end of this. And and you have an amortization schedule, whether it's a 30-year fixed or it's a 2-year arm, a 3-year arm. If they have something that goes with the market and it moves, their amortization schedule is going to look a little bit different, but at least you're going to know what an amortization schedule is. So if I just show you the term amortization or amortization schedule, you're like, oh my God, Kathy, what does that mean? So that's why I try to have the images in here, okay? Amortized loan, a loan to be repaid. Now, if you get a loan, you got to repay it, right? Usually. And if they forgive you of that loan, it's because it's probably family or the government, because Biden's trying to get people's student loans forgiven, right? So a loan is to be repaid, interest with principal, by a series of regular payments that are equal or nearly equal without any special balloon payment prior to maturity. Now, the reason they're saying that is, let's say as an example, you got some really crazy loan where your payment's $1,000 a month for the next 30 years, but then the last payment, what happens is your last payment is $250,000, because that would be a balloon payment. That huge payment at the end is what's left that hasn't been paid because you've only been paying, because the loan you have, you've only been paying $1,000. That's what they've been asking for. It's not, there's no shocker to it. You happen to get a loan that has that $250,000 balloon payment at the end. And so that's why right here it says without any special balloon payment prior to maturity. So that amortized loan is breaking down consistent payments where they consistently are paid all the way to the end and paid off. It is 7:21. We'll go for another 6 minutes, okay? And then we'll talk a little bit. What about annexation? The attaching of personal property to land so that the law views it as part of the real property, and that would be considered a fixture, right? Annexation can be actual or constructive. So constructive notice, also known as the doctrine of constructive notice, is the legal fiction used in the law of both common law and civil law systems to signify that a person or entity is legally presumed to have knowledge of something, even if they have no actual knowledge of it. So constructive notice, like that something's been presented, and there's kind of this assumption that because it's publicly known that everybody knows. It doesn't always work that way. It can be actual, it can be constructive, but annexation, I mean, it is, people don't really pay that much detail to a lot of things, but if they do, they might see it. Constructive notice is not necessarily the easiest thing to explain. But can you guys think of any attaching of personal property to land that would make it now part of real property? So what do you have that's personal that can be attached to land that would be considered a fixture? We've talked about this in class sometimes. Yeah, any type of fixture, Adam. It could be the shed, it could be a garage, it could be the house, because real property is the land, and then anything attached to it could be the personal property would be the lumber that would turn it that was built into a house and it becoming a fixture or a home. Some of these terms are not that easy. Ergo, trying to give you images that might make it worse. Sorry. Annual percentage rate. The relative cost of credit as determined in accordance with Reg Z of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System for implementing the Federal Truth in Lending Act. So you're like, okay, what's the annual percentage rate, Kathy? Well, we've talked about this in class off and on, and it's the APR. So if you ever see an advertisement on Insta or YouTube or Facebook, I don't know if you'd see it on LinkedIn yet, but it's usually like on the side of the screen and it says Lending Tree APR is 7% for a 15-year loan. Oh, that's a good question, but it's able to be removed, so it keeps it from being an improvement if that's what separates it from that. I guess you could say a barn. You could even say a mobile home, because technically mobile homes are personal. But when it becomes a fixture, it's personal property, and it can either stay with the property or it can be removed. So that personal property. So let's say, as an example, Adam buys a piece of property and he decides to put a mechanic shop inside the barn with personal property items like a hydraulic jack and those other like things that are set up, but you remove those with you. So I would venture to say that it's far closer to it being they're fixtures because they're set in the property, but they can be removed because they're your personal property, even though they're affixed or fixed to the land. That's a good question. When it comes to APR, annual percentage rate, you'll see advertisements will say, for a 15-year loan, the interest rate is 6%. And you're like, 6% for 15 years. I don't know if that's a good or whatever, but it's not the interest rate the client's getting. It's the cost of getting the loan, the annual percentage rate. So it's the relative cost of credit as determined in accordance with Reg Z. What's Reg Z? That's the regulation that was set in place to make sure that all lending institutions don't hide what they're charging the client and bumping up the rate. If they raise the rate, they need to say that they're getting what's known as like additional money. So they'd have to say, based on this rate, there's additional money that's going to be given to us. It's not, we used to call them kickbacks, and then they said kickbacks were illegal. You're like, okay, well, it's not a kickback. It's the additional money that we would get to give you this type of loan. So I love this image because solving for the annual percentage rate, you've got the theoretical base loan. So let's say you have a client that needs to buy a home for $350,000. Okay. You've got the higher payment with the cost. You have the rate and the considered cost totaling to 4.33%. So I'm looking for, it says T right here is 360. So for 30 years, the rate that they actually are going to get versus the APR. So they're calculating out what it's going to cost the client over the first year to absorb the costs of getting that loan. So when you're, let me look at it. Let me share this with you a little bit differently. When you buy a house and you buy a house for, let's say, $350,000, you pay $350 to buy that house. But in order to get that loan, you're going to have what's known as closing costs, and they can be anywhere from 5 to 7%. So let's say it's 7. Oops, wrong. I'm not in the calculator. I'm in the calendar. Hold on a second. Let's say for $350,000, it's going to cost you 7% to get the loan. That means you're going to have to come in with an additional $24,500. So the annual percentage rate is the relative cost of getting the credit or getting the loan to buy that $350,000 house. So when it's all said and done, yes, you bought that house for $350,000, but you also had to come in with closing costs. So you paid $374,500 because you had to pay to get the loan to close on the house, to get the insurance and the other stuff. So the APR is the relative cost of the credit. And the reason why it's in accordance with Reg Z is Reg Z has to, the regulation for truth in lending, right here it says Federal Truth in Lending Act, means that if the client is paying to get this interest rate, if the client is getting this loan, whatever costs are incurred associated with getting that loan, is there a loan origination fee? What are the other costs involved in buying this property? And anything associated with the loan will be calculated in for the annual percentage rate. Now, there's other costs to getting a house, the appraisal, the credit, there's a couple other things as well too, but the lion's share, Regulation Z, was brought into play because people that were in the lending institution the lending industry were like, well, if we get them that, like on the page here, if we get them that 4.25% interest rate, we're only going to be making an additional $10,000 for getting them in that loan program. Why don't we try to sell them on a 4.5% interest rate and say that's the best we can do, so we can make another $20,000 off of getting them that loan? And what Regulation Z did was said, well, you can do that if you want to, but you've got to tell them in the truth in lending, the breakdown, that you're going to make another $20,000 off them, giving them that 4.5% interest rate. And if the client is savvy, they're going to be like, wait a minute, you're going to make $20,000 giving me a 4.5% interest rate? Is there any option where you don't get $20,000? Will that lower my interest rate? So it helped regulate how that process worked. And that being said, we'll talk more about these vocabulary terms as time progresses. It is 7:30. I'm not going to keep you longer. We have been here for a whopping almost hour. You guys know how to reach me. Oh, wait, no, don't reach me there. Hold on a second. Wrong button. Kathy's good at wrong buttons. Okay, where's the chat? I lost my chat, y'all. I lost it. Well, welcome to Kathy's class. You guys know how to reach me. Reach me by email. Reach me by all of the things. There it is. Sometimes chat gets hidden. I don't know why. This is my email address. You guys know how to get a hold of me. Send me a message. Go read what you need to read. There's the Google Voice text number. Read what you need to read and prep for the week. If you have any questions about any of the stuff that you guys are reading, we'll just keep going through vocabulary terms, okay? Read what you need to read. If there's something that needs to be clearly defined, shoot me a message. We'll build a PowerPoint about it, or we can do a Zoom where it's just us talking. We'll figure it all out, okay? But I want you guys to have a great night. It is 7:31. Of course, have a great night. I will see you guys soon. All right? Be blessed and encouraged. Those of you, I'll see you bright and early in the morning if I see you. I'm trying. Absolutely. I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay. Bye.